Rage 2 is a wild ride, packed to the brim with powerful weapons, incredible powers, and lots of explosions. But rather than being a game that reaches for greatness and stumbles, at times it seems like Rage 2 isn't reaching at all. Rage 2 is set 30 years after the events of its predecessor. Humanity has emerged from their slumber. Ecopods have turned scorched earth into dense swamps and lush jungles, and just as nature blooms once more, so too does a violent new society. This world is run by militant factions fighting for whatever old world tech and resources that they can get their hands on. You play Walker, one of the last rangers in the Wasteland. This role is thrust upon you after a crushing attack on your home of Vineland. The Authority, a mysterious and extremely powerful faction in the Wasteland, is responsible for the attack and aim to take control over the Wasteland and cleanse it of its violent rabble. You as the player are tasked with restarting Project Dagger, a clandestine operation meant to dismantle the oppressive Authority. This mission will have you traversing a diverse in-game world, searching for the individuals who can help set this plan in motion, and what a beautiful world it is. The Wasteland's distinct biomes are a wonder to behold as you tear across the landscape in your vehicle of choice, Mad Max style. Rage 2's hubs, known as trade towns, are a beautiful sight as well. But in a trend that becomes more apparent as you play this game, the high notes don't come without their pitfalls. Texture popping is rampant during the game's larger set pieces. I even began to notice it in interior spaces as well. And while the time it takes for textures to load isn't too egregious, the sheer number of times it happened was enough to be distracting. When the game is running smoothly, however, it's quite stunning, and you can even appreciate it with an included photo mode. While most renditions of the post-apocalypse are limited to varying hues of brown and gray, Rage 2 has charming splashes of color that lend to a visually interesting experience. However, the neon glitch UI elements can become a bit disorienting, although they can be tweaked a bit in the settings. I'd recommend adjusting your FOV, turning off motion blur, and experimenting with the chromatic aberration. Moment-to-moment gameplay is extremely satisfying. Fans of titles like Doom and Wolfenstein will find a lot to enjoy here. The gunplay is airtight, and the weapons are fun to use. When paired with a diverse set of unlockable and upgradable powers, tearing through a sea of enemies becomes even more frenetic. But just as the game achieves one thing, it fails in another. The overarching story, the story missions themselves, feel like cheap framework and thin justifications to move you from one shootout to the next. Those of you looking for a deep and intriguing narrative will be disappointed. As I said in my early impressions, Rage 2 is a fun, B-rated action movie of a game. Manage those expectations and you should be happy. The main story I just mentioned is also quite brief, a flaw this game shares with its predecessor, along with another abrupt ending. However, I found that I had the most fun when I ignored the story completely, loading up into my favorite vehicle, inventory brimming with ammo, and just setting off for a bit of exploration. My favorite moment took place in a small town where two enemy factions were actually facing off against each other. I found myself bobbing and weaving between buildings, maneuvering between both factions and picking off stragglers while trying to dodge a tank positioned in the middle of the battle. It's these spontaneous moments of chaos where Rage comes alive. Another glowing part of the game is its customization. Just about everything in this game can be upgraded, from your nanotrite powers to your weapons to your vehicles to perks granted by the project system. As you sink points and resources into these trees, you can feel yourself getting more powerful, as the buffs that they provide are actually impactful and feel like more than simply boosting a number on the screen. In order to progress within the project system, you'll have to complete side objectives across the Wasteland, such as clearing out bandit camps or fuel depots. And while this is just another reason to go tearing into bandits, it doesn't feel like your actions are radically affecting the in-game world. Instead, it just feels like kind of a missed opportunity. When you look past the incredible gunplay, the beautiful design, and satisfying progression, a few other issues come to the fore. As I said in my early impressions, the driving physics aren't consistent across all the in-game vehicles, although I did wind up finding my preferred ride. The game's main story is short and the ending incredibly abrupt, which was an issue I had with Rage 1 and hoped would be fixed this time around. And my biggest issue, Rage 2 just doesn't seem to be trying all that hard to reinvent the wheel, to bring too many new ideas to the table. It seems satisfied with just being okay, which I suppose brings me to my final verdict on the game as a whole. Will this win Game of the Year? Probably not. And while I do try and review games in a vacuum and judge them for what they are, rather than what they are not, I can honestly tell you that there are much more compelling narratives out there waiting to be experienced if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a game with outlandish and absolutely wanton violence, if you're looking for a good time just shooting up some bad guys with insane powers, then this is the game for you. It might not be perfect, but it's a hell of a good time despite that.